Today I'm going to give you my top tips on how to most effectively sell your Funko Pops. Here we go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So contrary to that very clickbaity title, I am not selling any of my Funko Pops or my collection anytime soon. Today we're going to be talking about how to give you guys some tips and tricks on how to most effectively sell part or your entire Funko Pop collection if you are at that stage of your collecting journey. Now, the reason that we're going to be talking about this today is because we've actually gotten a lot of questions about selling your Funko Pops over the past few months. So I thought now would be the perfect time to put this together in a video, because right around this time of the year is when you see a lot of collectors downsizing as they, get ready for a lot of new Funko Pops to come out this year, or they just want to sell off their collection because they're done collecting and they want to move on to something else. So let's get into it. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is figure out if you are at that point where you want to downsize. Are you going to be selling off a few pops, or are you going to be selling off a large majority or your entire collection? This is going to play a major role in your strategy for how to actually go about selling. So let's start off with the first aspect, which is probably likely for a lot of people, where you're just downsizing and you want to get rid of some stuff that maybe you're not into anymore. So you just have a few Funko Pops off to the side that you want to sell. There's plenty of great platforms that allow you to sell Funko Pops. I highly encourage a lot of you guys to check out Mercari. I've had a lot of success using the Mercari app in selling Pops throughout the years that didn't fit my collection. The Whatnot Marketplace is also another great app that you can go to use to sell off some Funko Pops that you no longer want. And then there's, of course, eBay, which has been around for a long time. I did use eBay in the past to sell off a few Pops with pretty good success, but I haven't been on there in a long time, so I can't effectively recommend that platform as being a good place to sell your Funko Pops right now. Now, when going about selling off a few Pops, you are going to have to take the time to look up the values of each Pop. You're going to have to take pictures of all sides of the Pop if you want to sell it as quickly as possible. You're also going to have to interact with people who are interested in buying that Pop or Pops. They're going to have questions. They're going to make you offers depending on what platform it is. Then, once you agree to a sale price and you make the sale, you're going to have to pay a commission to XYZ platform that you're using, whether it's Mercari, eBay, or whatnot, on that sale. So you're going to have to keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out how much money you want to make off of each individual Pop in regards to what it's worth. At the end of the day, you are likely not going to get market value for that Pop once you've paid those fees. Now, once you get to the fees part, that is not the only cost you're going to incur. You're also going to need packaging for that Pop. You're going to need bubble wrap. You're going to need boxes, obviously. You're going to need tape. You're going to need fragile stickers. That is all additional costs that you're going to have on hand in order if you want to effectively sell those Pops. So you need to keep that in mind when you want to sell Pops individually. Now, I highly recommend this strategy if you have Pops at around $50 and up. I definitely recommend this strategy if you have a lot of very expensive Pops, maybe $100 to $200 and up. That's where you're going to want to sell individually. Now let's move over to the other side of the coin, where maybe you're somebody who wants to downsize a majority of your collection, and maybe in preparation for a lot of stuff coming out this year. You know that there's just a lot of stuff that you want to get, so you want to make some space, because no matter who you are, everyone is limited in some aspect by the space in their house, apartment, condo, wherever you live. You definitely don't have an infinite amount of space. Now, in regards to selling, a majority or your entire collection, you're not going to want to sit there and take pictures of every single Pop, make an individual listing for hundreds, if not thousands of Funko Pops. That's going to take a lot of man hours, and at the end of the day, if you have a lot of Funko Pops that are maybe worth $5 to $20, it's just not going to be worth your time putting those individual Pops on an app or selling them individually. That's where you're going to want to take your collection and either reach out to a company, somebody who buys Funko Pop collections, or you're going to want to go to a local store in your area. Maybe there's a mom and pop collectible shop. Maybe there's a comic book store that also sells Funko Pops that takes in collections. you're going to want to bring your giant collection to them to see what kind of offer you can get. Now, I can't speak for companies out there as to what percentage they are currently paying, but based on our 5 years now of heavily buying and selling Funko Pops, I'd say you're roughly going to get around 50% of what the Funko Pops are worth. Some companies out there might offer you more, some companies out there might offer you less. It just depends on how the Funko market is doing at that current point in time, and it also depends on the pieces in your Funko Pop collection. Do you have a lot of higher end pieces? Do you have a lot of limited pieces? Or do you just have a lot of common pops that a lot of places have, and they don't necessarily need to pay a high percentage for your collection because they probably already have some of those items in stock. So keep that in mind when it comes down to it. However, in giving your entire collection to a store or somebody who buys collections for roughly half of what their market value is, you're also relieving yourself of having to go through, list every single pop, sell off every single pop, pack and ship every single pop, and of course pay the selling fees that I just mentioned briefly on each platform for each item. So you are then passing that buck to somebody else, and in return, they are likely going to give you a lump sum of cash or store credit if it's a local store. I know there are stores out there that will actually give you a slightly higher percentage of market value for your collection if you decide to trade it in for store credit, which can be a great option if that store carries some other items that you want to add to your collection. Now, some of you out there watching may be wondering if there's a third option in the fact that maybe you don't want to sell off everything individually, and maybe you don't want to sell your collection to somebody for a lump sum. And I would say that there is actually a third option, and this is what I like to call a hybrid option. It does take a little bit more work, but you can get around paying some of those platform fees and of course trading away half your collection's value in the process. And that of course would be going about this. What I did in my years of collecting, and actually how I acquired a majority of my collection, was joining a lot of Funko Facebook groups where I interacted with a lot of other Funko collectors who were just like me. I was buying pops and other collectible items directly from other collectors via PayPal. And of course, we always highly recommend everybody to use PayPal goods and services because that protects both parties, the buyer and the seller, in the event that something goes wrong and PayPal needs to step in and correct the situation. Now, as a seller, somebody who can sell directly to another collector and not have to use one of those platforms like I mentioned before, Whatnot, Mercari, or eBay, that's going to save them those selling fees. So they might be more eager to sell you, the collector, the prospective buyer, an item a little bit under market value because they are saving that money from the platform fees. So I was able to get a lot of good deals on stuff that I have in my collection for under market value because people were able to work with me because they weren't paying those fees. Now, you are going to have to, of course, pay that 3% through PayPal by using PayPal goods and services. However, that 3% is a long cry from 15 to 20%, which is what most of these platforms will charge you after you sell an item through their platform. And Facebook isn't the only app or place where you can find groups like this. I know there's also a lot of Discord groups out there full of other collectors, and we actually have some private Instagram groups of our own through our channel right here. And if you want to become a Patreon member with the link down below or become a channel member, you'll actually get access to those private Instagram groups. And we highly encourage everyone to buy, trade, and sell in those groups safely with the use, of course, of PayPal goods and services. And I know between the 200 plus members that we are very grateful to have in those private groups, there are practically sales that happen every single day. And it's really cool to witness because you see somebody maybe selling something that no longer fits their collection to somebody who's really looking forward or trying to hunt down that specific item for their collection. So it's a win-win, and plus you get to interact with other great members of this awesome community. So that is the best way you can do it if you want to avoid platform fees, as well as having to deal with getting rid of a collection in bulk and losing potentially some of its value. However, keep in mind at the end of the day, when you are selling a collection in bulk to someone, whether it be an individual company or somebody who makes mystery boxes or a comic book shop, you're selling them your collection for, roughly half its value to allow them a margin for profit. They wouldn't be able to buy your items at 100% market value because then there's nowhere for them to make profit. So we actually buy collections almost every single week through our YouTube channel here because we do Whatnot auctions. Most of you guys watching might have heard of Whatnot or know about Whatnot. So we've had a lot of interaction and dealings with people here in the community through collection buying. And 99% of our transactions have been amazingly smooth. We've been very blessed to deal with some very kind people who have been, extremely just understanding of the shipping process and everything that goes into shipping a collection from one individual to us, and then us selling it and dealing with the finances and all that. We've been very blessed to deal with some amazing people. However, some people have reached out, and let's say their collection was worth $3,500. Well, they'll reach out to us and they'll say, hey, my collection's worth $3,500. I would like $3,000. And understandably so, that number on PPG or HobbyDB or the Funko app or whatever you're going off of could be very high, but you have to understand that in order to sell a collection in bulk, you're going to need to almost, forego some of that value because you're foregoing a lot of the problems and hassle that come with selling every item individually. So the last thing that I actually want to cover before we close out this video is something that I've unfortunately noticed happening over the last few months here in the Funko Pop community, and that is I've seen some people sell off their collections, briefly leave the Funko Pop community, and then all of a sudden come back and start to shame other people for continuing to collect Funko. That right there is 100% not okay. That is a form of bullying, and that's something that is just not acceptable behavior whatsoever. If you decide to move on from this hobby and collect something else, like I mentioned before, that's completely normal, completely okay. But it's not okay to turn around and then shame somebody or to somehow use fear to encourage somebody to not collect something that they do actually like. Just because you don't like something anymore or you don't get value out of something anymore, that doesn't mean others don't. There's a lot of value that people get out of collecting whatever it is they collect. It's because they have a passion for it. It's because they like it. And you as the collector should collect what you want to collect, not be influenced by somebody out there saying something either one way or another. Just live your own life and focus on the things that you care about the most. Don't worry about other people, don't shame other people, and definitely don't bash other people for continuing to do something that you no longer do. I've seen that happen. It really sucks. It's really unnecessary. It's uncalled for, and it needs to stop because it's not okay in other hobbies, and it's definitely not okay here in the Funko Pop community. I also find it really interesting how people have sold off their collections, but they're still very in tuned and very engaged into what's happening with Funko as a company. Guess what? If you are still paying attention to what Funko is doing, there's probably a small piece of you that misses it, really likes Funko still, even though you just don't want to admit it. So it's completely okay. There's a lot of people out there who sell their collections and then regret it. So before you sell anything in your collection, please take a moment, take a deep breath, realize, is it what you want to do? If it is, go for it. But I've also seen a lot of people regret selling some stuff they have, especially when that stuff down the road goes up tremendously in value. But guys, that's going to do it for me. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If there's any other questions that you have regarding selling any amount of pops in your collection, definitely let me know down in the comment section below. I've downsized here and there throughout the years to make room for other things, and I'm sure this year at some point we'll sell off a few things to make room for some new stuff that Funko comes out with. It's completely natural, and if you weren't changing your collection every now and then you definitely wouldn't be human. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, don't stop shooting until you score, and we'll see you tonight right here at 9 p.m. Eastern on the channel for Pop Force 1.